Why is it that the moment you grow stronger, calmer, and more self-assured, narcissists don't disappear from your life, they attack harder? Think about it. Shouldn't your strength protect you? Shouldn't your boundaries repel manipulators? And yet, the opposite often happens. The stronger you become, the more these shadow-driven personalities unleash their tricks. Why? Because strength threatens them. And when your light begins to shine, the darkness inside them scrambles for survival. This isn't random. It's not just toxic behavior. Carl Jung explained this through his concept of the shadow, the hidden, repressed part of the psyche that the narcissist refuses to confront. When they see your strength, it exposes their weakness. When they feel your sovereignty, it reminds them of their dependence. And so, they react with hostility, deceit, and manipulation. But here's the chilling part. Their tactics are not accidents. They are dirty tricks designed to pull you back into submission, drain your energy, and blur your sense of self. Today, we'll expose the 5 most dangerous tricks narcissists use when you are too strong, and why, unless you recognize them, even the wisest among us can be dragged back into the shadows. So, the central question becomes, why do narcissists intensify their attacks when you finally step into your power? And how do they use psychological manipulation to break down your strength? To answer this, we need to look deeper into Jung's psychology of the shadow. Jung believed every human carries within them dark, unconscious impulses. But most people, at some point, confront and integrate this shadow, accepting their flaws, owning their weaknesses, and transforming them into wisdom. The narcissist, however, does not. Instead, they project their shadow outward. They see their weakness in you, their insecurity in you, their self-hatred in you. And so begins the battle. Your strength triggers their shadow. Your calmness destabilizes their false self. Your independence cuts through the illusion of their control. That's why they fight dirty. That's why they cannot allow you to simply be strong.
Jung warned that when someone denies their shadow, it doesn't vanish, it grows more dangerous. It slips into the personality, disguises itself, and emerges through manipulation. For the narcissist, this means they cannot admit weakness, so they must make you feel weak. They cannot confront shame, so they must shame you. They cannot face abandonment, so they must trap you in fear of loss. It's a sinister inversion. What they cannot face inside, they force you to carry. This is why narcissists are masters of projection. Your strength becomes a mirror too unbearable for them to face, so they distort it, attack it, and attempt to break it. This is not just psychology, it's philosophy of power. Narcissists operate through what Nietzsche might call resentment, a corrosive envy that fuels sabotage. They cannot climb higher, so they drag others down.
Before we expose the 5 tricks, we need to understand the pattern. Narcissists test boundaries constantly. The moment they sense you've grown stronger, whether through silence, independence, or simple self-respect, they panic. Why? Because your strength makes their manipulation useless. They can no longer feed off your validation, your emotional reactions, your submission. So they escalate. The tactics you're about to hear are not random insults or occasional mind games. They are systematic attacks rooted in the narcissist's fear of your strength. Each dirty trick is a way to undermine your confidence, confuse your reality, and keep you entangled in their shadow.
The first dirty trick is gaslighting. When you rise, they rewrite the story. They tell you you're not really stronger. They suggest your confidence is arrogance. They laugh at your boundaries, calling you cold or selfish. They plant seeds of doubt, making you wonder if your strength is actually weakness in disguise. Gaslighting is not just lying, it's an attempt to erase your perception of reality. If you believe your growth is an illusion, you'll hand back your power. And here lies the psychological cruelty. Narcissists know exactly when to strike. They sense the fragile moments of your transformation when you are still adjusting to your strength, and that is when they attack. Jung would say this is the shadow at work. The narcissist cannot allow your light to reveal their darkness, so they smother it with confusion.
The second dirty trick is framing your strength as a threat. Notice how they twist your calmness into coldness, your independence into abandonment, your boundaries into betrayal. Why? Because if they can make you feel guilty for being strong, you'll sabotage yourself. You'll dim your own light to make peace. You'll bend your boundaries to prove you're not cruel. This is projection at its most manipulative. They accuse you of being what they secretly are. They frame your strength as dangerous so they can preserve their fragile false self. This is the paradox. They fear losing you, but they fear even more losing control over you. So when you show strength, they will do whatever it takes to turn it into a weapon against you.
The third dirty trick narcissists use when you grow too strong is perhaps the most insidious: weaponizing your empathy. They know you have a conscience. They know you can feel. They know you don't want to hurt others, and so they twist your humanity against you. How? By playing the victim. Suddenly, they're the ones abandoned, the ones mistreated, the ones hurt by your coldness. The moment you step into strength, they flip the script. Look what you're doing to me. You've changed. You don't care anymore. This is not an appeal to love. It's an attack on guilt. They want to make you doubt whether strength is cruelty, whether your independence is selfishness. Carl Jung described this as shadow projection. The narcissist cannot bear their weakness, so they project it onto you. They become weak, fragile, wounded, forcing you to feel responsible for healing them. But notice the trap. Every time you rush back to rescue them, you shrink. You trade your sovereignty for their temporary approval. This is the cruel paradox. The stronger you become, the weaker they pretend to be. And in your compassion, you are tempted to betray yourself.
The fourth trick is external. It's not just about you, but about how others see you. When narcissists sense they can't control you directly, they attack your reputation. They spread whispers, half-truths, and subtle distortions designed to isolate you. Suddenly, friends or family may look at you differently. People in your circle hear that you're arrogant, difficult, heartless. Why do they do this? Because power is not only about control over you, it's about control over perception. If they can turn others against you, they regain leverage. They create doubt in your relationships, making you second-guess your own strength. This is a psychological war fought through triangulation, pitting others against you to force you back into dependence. Jung would warn us here. The narcissist projects their shadow into the collective. They don't just fight you privately, they recruit society itself into the game.
And this reveals a deeper truth. Narcissistic tactics are not just personal, they are political. They mirror how corrupt leaders manipulate entire populations, smearing truth-tellers, isolating dissidents, and weaponizing collective perception to maintain control.
The fifth dirty trick is the most obvious, but also the most dangerous: escalation. When all else fails, when gaslighting, guilt-tripping, and social manipulation no longer work, the narcissist erupts. They unleash rage, threats, ultimatums, or emotional blackmail. This is the final mask drop. The calm facade collapses, and their shadow bursts out in raw hostility. Why? Because they feel the collapse of control. And for the narcissist, loss of control feels like annihilation. You'll notice the escalation follows a pattern. At first, subtle manipulation, then guilt, then social sabotage, and finally, explosive rage. This is why many survivors of narcissistic abuse describe moments where they feel they're walking on eggshells, because the narcissist trains them to fear this final explosion. Jung warned that repressed shadow energy, when unacknowledged, eventually bursts out destructively. And this rage is the clearest sign of the narcissist's terror. Your strength has revealed their weakness. Your independence has unmasked their dependence.
Here's the unsettling truth. These tricks are designed to work on strong people. Think about it. Gaslighting works because you're reflective enough to question yourself. Guilt works because you're compassionate. Smear campaigns work because you care about integrity. Rage works because you value peace. In other words, the very virtues that make you powerful also make you vulnerable. This is why Jung's philosophy is so vital here. He taught that strength without awareness of the shadow is incomplete. Unless you recognize how your empathy, your reflection, your compassion can be turned against you, you remain susceptible. Strength is not only about power, it is about consciousness, about seeing the shadow in others and in yourself. Now let's pull back the lens. These 5 tricks are not limited to personal relationships. They play out on a societal scale. Look at politics. Look at media. Look at corporations. When people grow too aware, too independent, too resistant to control, what happens? The system gaslights them. You're imagining corruption. It reframes their strength as dangerous, radical, selfish, extreme. It weaponizes empathy. Think of the poor leaders, they're doing their best. It smears dissidents. And when all else fails, it escalates into raw coercion. This is why Jung's psychology feels timeless. Narcissists are not just individuals, they are archetypes of how power operates in the world. And until we learn to see these tactics clearly, we will remain trapped in cycles of obedience, both in our personal lives and in society. We have now revealed the 5 dirty tricks: gaslighting, turning strength into threat, weaponizing empathy, smear campaigns, and escalation. But knowing the tricks is not enough, because the real danger is not what they do, it's how we respond. And now we'll take you into the deeper lesson of Jung's shadow, the psychology of resilience, and the ultimate path to freedom from narcissistic control. We've exposed the 5 dirty tricks narcissists use when you grow too strong. But here's the critical insight. Their tactics only work when you remain blind to the shadow. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The narcissist thrives on your blindness. They thrive when you mistake their projection for truth. They thrive when your empathy overrides your boundaries. They thrive when your need for peace silences your resistance. But the moment you see the pattern, the spell begins to break. Because once the shadow is named, it loses power. Jung called the ultimate path to freedom individuation, the process of integrating the shadow, becoming whole, and stepping into the self. For you, this means recognizing not only the tricks of the narcissist, but also the parts of yourself that make you vulnerable. Your compassion, your guilt, your need for belonging. These are not weaknesses, but unless you integrate them, they can be exploited. Individuation is not about killing empathy or suppressing love. It's about transforming them into conscious strength. It's about knowing when compassion becomes self-betrayal, when peace becomes avoidance, when self-reflection becomes self-doubt. The narcissist loses their grip the moment you reclaim these qualities, not as blind impulses, but as conscious choices.
Let's return to the core question. Why do narcissists attack hardest when you grow too strong? Because strength unmasks their lie. The narcissist builds a false self, a fragile mask of superiority. But your strength reminds them of the truth they cannot face, that beneath the mask lies emptiness, dependence, and fear. Every time you refuse to react, every time you stand in silence, every time you walk away, they feel the collapse of their illusion. Your strength reveals their weakness. That is why they must attack, not because you were wrong, but because you are right.
Think beyond the personal. Jung believed the shadow does not only live in individuals, it also lives in collectives. Societies, like people, project their shadows. They create scapegoats. They demonize truth-tellers. They glorify corrupt leaders who mirror their unacknowledged desires. This is why we see the same tricks: gaslighting, guilt, smear campaigns, and escalation on a massive scale. Entire governments, corporations, and media systems deploy the same psychological warfare against populations who begin to wake up. The narcissist is not just your ex, your boss, or your manipulative friend. They are a symbol, a mirror of how power sustains itself through fear, illusion, and control. And just as individuals must confront their shadows to grow, so must societies. So what is the takeaway? What is the weapon against these dirty tricks? It is not rage. It is not endless fighting. It is consciousness. The more aware you become, the less their tactics work. When they gaslight, you trust your perception. When they guilt trip, you recognize projection. When they smear, you stand in integrity. When they rage, you hold your silence. This is not weakness, it is mastery. Jung called this the path of the self, the quiet, unshakable strength that emerges when you integrate the shadow and refuse to be ruled by fear. The narcissist fears this most of all, because once you awaken to your own inner power, they cannot touch you. Their tricks collapse, their illusions dissolve, their shadow is revealed. And here lies the ultimate irony. In trying to destroy your strength, they actually force you to become stronger, if you choose to see. So I leave you with this. The next time a narcissist intensifies their attacks when you grow stronger, don't ask, "What's wrong with me?" Ask instead, "What shadow of theirs have I exposed?" because every dirty trick they use is proof, not of your weakness, but of your power. And the moment you see this, you are free.